The sun beat down harshly on the cracked pavement of the school courtyard, casting long shadows of students clustered in knots. Laughter echoed cruel, loud, and hollow. In the center of it all, Miss Clara Bennett knelt on the hard concrete, her palms pressed to the ground, her eyes lowered not out of fear, but to hide the storm brewing within them. You're nothing but a joke, sneered Darren Whitlock, the ringleader of the seniors, 18 years old, tall, cocky, full of the kind of arrogance only pain and privilege could raise. You're not even a real teacher. They only gave you this job out of pity. A few boys chuckled behind him, egged on by the crowd's toxic energy. Phones were out, some were filming, some were whispering. No one moved to help. Clara could hear her own heart thundering in her chest. The sting in her knees was sharp, the humiliation sharper. But it was the quiet gaze of 12-year-old Aiden Myers from the back of the crowd that dug the deepest. He was watching her with wide, confused eyes. Aiden, who barely spoke, but had once told her that she made him feel safe. What would he think now? The events that led to this moment started weeks ago, subtle, insidious, and personal. Clara had been hired at Brookwood High just 6 months earlier, fresh out of teacher training but with a lifetime of fighting behind her. She wasn't the conventional kind. Her wardrobe didn't scream schoolmom. She wore leather boots and sometimes had streaks of blue in her hair. She taught literature like it was a revolution because for her, it had been *. She was the daughter of factory workers, raised in a rough neighborhood where words were either your armor or your weapon. Clara chose armor. She had fought to get an education, slept in libraries, and earned every damn degree on her wall with blood and bone. So when she walked into Brookwood, a school polished on the outside but rotting on the inside, she thought she was ready. She wasn't. Brookwood was a place where wealth and legacy ruled, where bullies wore expensive sneakers and smiled for school board photos. Darren Whitlock was a legacy kid. His father practically funded the school's new gym, and Darren had taken an instant dislike to Clara, her tone, her confidence, her refusal to bend. He called her Ms. Bennett the broken, whispered lies about her past, forged attention slips, vandalized her car, and yet never got caught. The administration turned blind eyes. He's just going through a phase, the vice principal once said. Try not to provoke him. Provoking him, apparently, included telling him to stop cheating on tests and threatening to call his parents when he skipped class. It escalated. Slowly, a joke in class. A chair moved just as she was about to sit. Books stolen, lessons sabotaged, but Clara held on. For the kids who needed her, for Aiden, for Jasmine, for Luke, who had autism and only trusted her voice to read out loud. Then came the Friday before spring break. The seniors had planned it. They tricked Clara into coming outside, telling her a student had been hurt. When she ran out into the courtyard, they surrounded her. Darren shoved a piece of paper in her face, an edited resignation letter with her signature forged. He read it out loud as if it were scripture. She admits she's a failure, he said, waving it dramatically. And now, as tradition demands, she kneels in apology to her betters. The crowd laughed, some uncomfortably, some eagerly. One of the boys shoved her shoulder. Another jeered. The phones came out. Clara stumbled but caught herself. Then Darren smirked and whispered close to her ear, Neil or I release that edited video of you screaming in class. Your job's done either way. And so, Clara knelt, not out of weakness but to truly feel, the fire she'd need to rise. The laughter echoed in her mind long after the crowd dispersed. The school said it would investigate. Darren's father called it an unfortunate misunderstanding, but the video clips were already online. The school's reputation was what mattered now. Clara was quietly told she might want to take a voluntary leave. She went home that night, sat on her couch and cried, not for herself, but for every kid who had seen her on her knees and felt a familiar sting in their chest. Then she stood up. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she made a plan. She started by calling old friends, journalists, lawyers, her old professors, and even a tech-savvy former student who owed her a favor. She compiled evidence, every email, every report she'd filed that was ignored, every whispered threat. She found former students bullied by Darren. Some had dropped out. One was in therapy. They gave statements, anonymous but damning. But the biggest piece. A recording. Her desk had a voice-activated recorder. It was for students with learning disabilities who needed lecture transcripts. It had picked up Darren's voice that day, right before she knelt. Every word, the threat, the manipulation, the laughter. With help, she put together a short documentary-styled video, The Truth of Brookwood High. She released it anonymously online under the title, This is How We Treat Our Teachers. It went viral in 3 days. National news picked it up by the end of the week. Former teachers came forward. Parents demanded answers. Aiden's mother wrote a tearful post about how Clara had helped her son come out of his shell. Thousands rallied behind her. Brookwood tried damage control. The principal was put on administrative leave. Darren's father withdrew his funding in fury, but the district didn't care anymore. They were facing a civil rights investigation. And Clara Asterisk, she walked back into Brookwood High 2 weeks later, head high, in a crisp blazer, with her boots clicking defiantly on the tiled floor. Asterisk, the same courtyard where she had knelt was empty, but she stood there, alone, and waited. Asterisk, students began trickling in, then teachers, then parents. A silent crowd gathered. Asterisk, then came Darren, his swagger slightly muted, his eyes dark with resentment. Asterisk, she didn't speak to him, she didn't need to. Asterisk, instead, she turned to the crowd and said, "Bullies win when we stay silent. I'm done being silent." Asterisk, the superintendent offered her a full-time position at a better-funded school. She accepted, but on her last day at Brookwood, she gave a final lesson in the auditorium packed to capacity. Asterisk, she didn't talk about literature that day. She talked about courage. Asterisk, sometimes, she said, voice steady, kneeling isn't surrender. It's gathering strength to rise. I didn't fight back for revenge. I fought because every time a teacher quits, a bully wins. Every time a student gives up, an abuser smiles. We can't let that happen. Not on our watch. Asterisk, the crowd rose in applause. Not the kind of hollow clapping you hear out of politeness, but the kind that thunders with truth. Asterisk, Darren was later transferred to another school. No special privileges. His father's influence crumbled under public scrutiny. Some say he learned from the ordeal. Others say karma just started its work. Asterisk, Clara didn't chase revenge. She had something better. Asterisk, 2 years later, she published a memoir titled The Day I Knelt. It became a bestseller. But more importantly, it became a lifeline for teachers, students, and anyone who had ever felt powerless. Asterisk, she now runs workshops across the country, teaching not just literature but resilience. Asterisk, and sometimes, when she tells her story, she ends with a smile and a message that echoes louder than any insult. Asterisk, they forced me to kneel, but I rose up and I didn't just stand, I soared. Asterisk, because sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truth, and sometimes the ones who fall rise up strong enough to shake the world.